Hi, I'm Dr. Bjorn Peterson with Regions Hospital EMS, and thanks for watching this month's Regions EMS Update. This month we're hosted by Maplewood Fire. Like many suburban agencies, Maplewood has seen its fair share of challenges and growth over the past few years. But like all of you, they've been able to innovate, adapt, and overcome to continue to provide a high level of emergency medical care for their community. As we wrap up 2017, we'd like to take a look back on some of the things we've done this year and give you a behind-the-scenes look at our production team and some of the fun that we've been having making these video updates. Before we do that though, we still have some good educational content to get out. We've lined up 2 local pediatric experts this month to talk about respiratory illnesses and child abuse. So Carrie, take it away.
Thanks, Bjorn. So Dr. Barrow, working in the emergency department, winter is here pretty much. How is the respiratory situation going with the pediatrics?
We have seen so much respiratory stuff, and obviously it gets worse in the winter, as you well know. We were diagnosing RSV this summer already, so I'm kind of concerned that it might be a busy year with bronchiolitis. But what we've been seeing a lot of lately is croup.
What kind of symptoms should our providers be looking for when if they're thinking about croup?
Well, obviously the barky cough. They do sound like a seal. When you hear them come in and they're going, or, or. And then if they have the stridor, they obviously make the sound, and so they kind of sound like, and then when they get crying, they sound even worse, and then they have all the snot that gets in the way with it. Often the kids will vomit with it. They get very upset. They're coughing so hard. And children, when they cough hard, vomit more than adults do with hard coughing. So that doesn't make me think it's not croup. In fact, it's just very common with kids who are coughing hard to throw up. The croupers that we don't like to see are the ones that can't make any noise because they can't generate enough pressure to have a good cough, okay, or even to get stridor. Those are the worrisome kids, and then you're going to see the classic signs of upper airway obstruction with those kids. They're going to be retracting when they try to breathe in. They're going to be blue. They're going to be somnolent. Those are the sick ones.
What kind of measures can they do in like a pre-hospital setting in order to help improve them on the way?
Epi. You can do racemic epi or just regular old epi. And the nebulizers work very well. I do want to emphasize though, these kids need masks. They're too little to generate enough inspiratory effort to clear the tubing to actually get the medicine in. They're not cooperative enough to do it, especially if they're sick and crying. So what you want to do is you want to use a mask in those kids, and they need to have a mask. I'll say it again, use a mask. Often we'll get kids in that have not had a mask. People have done blow-by. Studies have showed 95% of that goes to the air. So if the people who are giving the neb actually need it, that's fine. Do it that way because then you're going to get more than the kid's going to get. But 95% goes to the air, so they're not getting anything. So often we'll get, they failed their neb. Well, they didn't fail their neb. Their neb wasn't administered properly. So they need to have a mask. And yes, the kids are going to fight. I'm sorry. They hate that. I mean, I would too if I was air hungry and had something smashed on my face. But you do have to hold it. And probably the best way to do it is to have the parents hold the child on their lap, put their arms around them, one hand on the forehead if they're really wild, and then somebody else holds the mask on. And that's just kind of what you have to do.
Have you seen any of the really sick kids yet?
With croup?
With croup?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of really sick kids that have need to be admitted. I haven't had to intubate anybody, and that's always good because their airways are really, really tiny when you have to intubate for croup. You prefer not to if you don't have to. Try to open them up as best you can with epi. But we've had a couple of sick kids that have needed to be admitted for repeated stridor. Those are usually the smaller kids because their airways are smaller.
How long after giving a epi-neb should we be waiting to see if there's a good result from it or repeating the neb?
I will repeat nebs within 15 minutes easily if they're still stridulous. If they can't breathe, I'm going to give them another neb. It's adrenaline, it's epinephrine. It's going to make their heart rate go up. That is the most significant side effect. Kids are made to have high heart rates, okay? That's the way they increase their cardiac output. So it's safe for them to have high heart rates. They don't have coronary artery disease. They don't have any other problems that they wouldn't tolerate that with. I wouldn't want to do that with an adult. I wouldn't want to make an old person who has coronary artery disease give them a stress test by giving them epi. But kids can tolerate that very well. So I'll repeat it if they're still stridulous. I don't think that there's any reason not to.
So waiting that maybe 15 minutes or so?
You're going to see
or
a different right away.
Pretty instantaneous.
Usually these kids are going, while you watch them, you can see the stridor disappear. It's pretty amazing. So that's what I would do on the way in. Now, if you get a bad sick grouper and they're not going to get anything in while they're breathing, give them a shot of epi. Give them intramuscular epi like you would do for an allergic reaction. It works. You know, I wouldn't do that if they're still breathing pretty well.
And it's definitely still good to transport them, even if they have a good response to them, because in the ED you like to watch them. Is that correct?
We do. We give steroids. Then we watch them for a few hours. ASAP says to watch them for 3 hours. I'm a 2 to 3 hour person. Depending. Yeah. Depending on how old they are, how big their airways are, what time of the day it is.
Sure.
Croup is a disease of the night, as we know. Why that is, I don't know if anyone has worked out. I really don't know. But it is a disease of the night, and we see it more often at night, obviously because of that. And if it's early in the morning, you'll hear people tell this. I'm sure you've heard this story in the emergency room. They were a little barky last night, but they got perfectly well through the day. They were able to go to school, go to taekwondo, have dinner, go to bed, and then wake up really bad again. So it's a disease of the night. We see that progressing during the nights. So for example, if I see a bigger kid who has mild croup and it's 6 o'clock in the morning, I'll tend to let them go home a little bit earlier than I would a smaller baby in the middle of the night.
And can you talk a little bit about maybe why not the beta agonist when we're thinking about or using albuterol?
When we're thinking croup, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Beta agonists work on the bronchioles. They work on the muscles in the bronchioles to help relax them. It doesn't work on your upper airway at all. You can give all the beta agonist you want. It's not going to affect the upper airway, the swelling in the upper airway, because that's what croup is. It's a swelling just below the vocal cords, or right at the vocal cords, just around there. Epinephrine shrinks that. Beta agonists don't do anything for that. You can give albuterol, you can give Atrovent, nothing's going to work. What you need to get in there is some alpha agonist and then later a steroid to help shrink it.
That makes sense. I don't know if you have any other thoughts about croup that we want to talk about or anyone else.
The things to think about with croup is, could it be something else? I guess that's the whole thing, So like I said, croup's a disease of the night. Kids are usually asleep and wake with that, and you'll get that history over and over. My kid was fine. They woke up. They were barking. They couldn't breathe. We tried the steam. Steam has been proven not to work, though. That's how we used to treat them that way 30 years ago, and it doesn't work. But the cold air does work, and so it's kind of nice now that it's colder, actually, because kids in the cars are getting better on their way in, so that's good. So if you have a classic presentation in the middle of the night, that's probably going to be croup. But during the day, I'm thinking out other things. I'm thinking, is it a foreign body? Did little brother hand them, a Lego and they inhaled it, or a toy or something else? So a foreign body is something that we always worry about too. So if there was gagging, choking, sputtering, there was stuff around them, it's the middle of the day, then you're thinking, hey, could this be something else? It's probably not croup. So those are the things that I usually worry about. There's other causes, obviously, of upper airway obstruction. But those are kind of things that I think about initially when I'm seeing kids.
So Dr. Barrow, thank you so much for being with us today and giving all of your great information on respiratory illnesses, specifically with croup and bronchiolitis. Sounds like the big takeaway is use the mask.
Use the mask. Don't be hesitant to use the nebs, and repeat them if you think they need it. Kids can tolerate it. I don't want people to be afraid of that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Abe Campos with Regions EMS. We're here today with Dr. Mark Hudson from the Midwest Children's Resource Center and local child abuse expert who's going to answer some of our questions today. Well, Dr. Hudson, thank you for coming today to speak with us and answering a few of our questions that we have. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a child abuse pediatrician by training, so I did a fellowship in child abuse pediatrics. I'm the medical director of Midwest Children's Resource Center, which is the child advocacy center and child abuse subspecialty service at Children's Minnesota.
Could you tell us a little bit about your role at the Midwest Child Resource Center and the role that you play in their care?
So we see children, anytime there's concerns about abuse or neglect, that splits about 60% of the kids we see, there's concerns about sexual abuse, and about 40% there's concerns about physical abuse. So we see kids in our outpatient clinic in St. Paul, as well as in the inpatients hospital at Children's Minnesota, as well as Gillette. I spent some time covering Hennepin and University of Minnesota as well.
Okay. So how prevalent would you say that child abuse is in our area?
Well, the actual prevalence is sometimes hard to get a handle on. If we look at what gets reported to Child Protection, we're at a point right now where the number of reports coming into Child Protection are on the rise very significantly. Last year, there were close to 40,000 children that were reported and screened into Child Protection. That's up almost double from what it has maybe been at some times in the past.
Could you tell us a little bit about the mandatory reporting in the state of Minnesota?
Sure. So healthcare providers in Minnesota are mandated reporters. Generally speaking, the guideline in both Minnesota as well as many other states is when there's reason to believe that abuse or neglect has occurred. So it's a pretty low threshold, and making a report to Child Protection or law enforcement doesn't mean that you know that it's necessarily abuse. It just means that there's reason to believe that it is. As a mandated reporter, you can report to either Child Protection or law enforcement, and they are mandated to cross-report to each other. So reporting to either one of those agencies fulfills your duty as a mandated reporter.
What are the more common injury patterns that you see in child abuse?
The primary thing to be thinking about is development. Okay, so one of the things that occurs in child abuse, particularly some of our most injured children, and if we look at our most injured children, they're most often under 3 years of age, and many times they're infants. And so thinking about the development and whether they're able to sort of hurt themselves, if we look at our youngest kids with head trauma, abuse is far and away the most common reason to have head trauma in an infant, and that's because they just don't do things that result in injury. So really thinking about development, thinking, is this a child who's able to hurt themselves? If they are not a mobile and active child, then to be thinking about, is there a reasonable trauma history here, or is this not something that makes sense?
What are some of the typical red flags that will clue us into non-accidental trauma?
So things that might be a red flag are infants or non-mobile children with no history of trauma, okay? Because if they sustain a fall or something of that nature, a caregiver should know. Other things to be thinking about are implausible histories or improbable histories. Children who are reportedly hurt by other toddlers, or children who are reported to sustain serious injury from a short fall, like a fall off of the couch or a changing table or something like that.
Once a report is filed, could you tell us about the process that gets activated?
From the medical side, first we'll start with, and most of the children's hospitals in the metro, in the Minneapolis metro area, have a child abuse pediatrician who's on staff. And so there likely will be some additional workup that happens from the medical side. That happens both from the ER doctors and the intensive care doctors as well as the child abuse doctors. So trying to ferret out the extent of the injuries, looking for alternate diagnoses. So that would be sort of one thing that's happening. And then there's a number of things that happen outside of the hospital. Okay, so oftentimes, particularly if it's a significant injury, you're going to have involvement of Child Protection and law enforcement, and they're going to be doing oftentimes a joint investigation. And law enforcement's job, of course, is to think about crimes. Child Protection, on the other hand, is more focused on safety, so they will be looking at whether that child or other children in that environment are safe.
We want to say thank you for Dr. Mark Hudson for coming out here and spending some time with us and answering questions that are very pertinent to what we do in the field. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, Kevin Lynch here with the good folks at Regions EMS. Now usually you don't see too much of me because I'm one of the few that have the honor and privilege of working behind the scenes here to help produce these monthly update videos. Although there is some speculation from some of the staff members around here that Dr. Peterson just doesn't like anybody on camera unless they're as pretty as he is. Either way, whatever your belief is, we do really enjoy producing these videos as part of your monthly education and appreciate the support and positive reviews from you and your coworkers. So please, keep that coming in, as believe it or not, there are a few of us around here that feed off that inflated ego. So since the December edition marks the end of our 2017 updates, in the spirit of the holidays, we felt that it was only appropriate to share some of the joy that we have working behind the scenes to bring these to you. So, without further ado, enjoy.
Let kinks out of my neck here. I'll start over again. That gets me smiling at least. So what do measles, K2, and dextrose have in common? Well, nothing really, but for this Regions it's gonna be a lot of that. I'm trying to say, how should I do 3? This is a talent problems. 3, 3, 3. 3, like this? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Even got my hair cut yesterday. That was a little shaggy. All right. Do that again. Do I have red marks or anything?
All right, whenever you're ready.
All right. So it's very important to ventilate the patient compartment. I'm making up words as I go along. I don't like doing that. But for this Regions EMS, so good. Breaker, breaker, niner.
Kevin filming away.
Okay.
That hand motion is appropriate.
On behalf of all of us, sports have been a part of educational institutions and clubs for, say, decades. Why was I going to say decades? Years, millennia, era. You liked my watch? Yeah, pretty cool, huh? Can't do this. Can't do this. I get nervous. I get nervous. Did they flash me from back there? All right, background. Okay, applause. Applause. Okay, gotta run. That'll be a good one. That's it for this month. Yeah. That's it. Mic drop. I'm out. It's a wrap. Well, hopefully you enjoyed a little humor at my expense. But don't worry, I'm a big boy. I can handle it. We really do have fun making these videos, so hopefully you find them just as educational and entertaining. We're always looking for feedback and new ideas, so if you found our videos helpful in any way, please check us out on any of our social media sites, our website, or contact us by email at emseducation@healthpartners.com. From all of us at Regions EMS, be smart, be safe, be professional, and have a safe and happy holiday season. Thanks for all you do.